And Matthew, if you can get the link.
We're live.
We're live. Good morning. Welcome. I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville and the chair of this 911 specialist work group. I want to welcome and thank everyone who's on the work group, who is in supporting our work, or who's watching from home or work to help make sure that we take better care of, in Maryland law, the folks who are 911 specialists, the courageous women and men who work under the headset, saving lives and property every day. We are going to get a lot done today. I want to do quick introductions, and then I want to go around the room, and then we will get started with subcommittee and make a plan for how this work group commission is going to work. So why don't we start with introductions? And I thank everybody for being on time. Why don't we start, Arnold, with you and Davin, who are the backbone. Then we'll go to my legislative colleagues, and then we'll go around the room. Arnold,
Good
thank you
morning,
for all
everyone.
you've done.
Thank you so much, Chair Kagan. Good morning, everyone. My name is Arnold Ajla. I'm a policy analyst at the Department of Legislative Services, and I am supporting this wonderful work group. Thank you.
Yay. Davin,
My name's Davin Brownell. I'm support staff here in Department of Legislative Services helping out.
great. Senator Carozza,
Senator Mary Beth Carozza, proud to represent Maryland's coast, Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset counties. Proud to be a co-chair with the chair Kagan on the 911 work group and chairing the retirement subcommittee. And really appreciate the work we've done so far and encouraged by, I think, some thoughtful recommendations that we'll be able to move forward with.
thank you. To our delegates, Delegate Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I appreciate being on this committee as well. I'm Delegate Teresa Riley from Hartford and Cecil.
Great. Delegate Woods.
Good morning, everyone. I am Delegate Jamila Woods from Prince George's County, Legislative District 26, and also very happy to be on this committee.
Great. Okay, I'm going to call you as I see you here. Randy.
Good morning, Randy Linthicum, Deputy Director at MIMS, Maryland Institute for Emergency Medical Services.
Thank you. Stacy.
Good morning, I'm Stacy Norton, Human Resources Director from Worcester County.
Captain Stevenson.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Stevenson, Captain for the City of Bowie Police Department.
Shar.
Good morning. I'm sorry to be in the car. I'm Charlene Flaherty, Deputy Director, Office of Homeland Security, Public Safety Communications in Prince George's County, and I am really, really happy to be on this committee.
Yay. Sharif.
Good morning, I am Drew Thomas. I am a 911 specialist for Montgomery County, and I represent 911 specialists for the state of Maryland, this group, and the Maryland 911 Board.
Yay. Tamara.
Good morning. I'm Tamara Haney. I serve as a Communications Battalion Chief is my fancy title, but I'm a manager here at Hartford County DES, and I also am very thrilled to be part of this committee.
Thank you. Bryant.
Brian Mitchell, Dorchester County 911 Deputy Director.
Thank you. Nisi. Andronice.
Hi, good morning. I'm Nisi. I'm the Executive Assistant. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your signal is a little weak. And you might be frozen now. So
Sorry.
Nisi works with Dr. Collins, who chairs the 911 board, the CEO and chair of the 911 board. Cecilia.
Good morning, Cecilia Warren, representing the 911 board and also a policy director at Department of Disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Ashley.
Good morning, Ashley Bergen, manager, Carroll County 911 Center.
Thank you. Major Gregory.
Good morning, Major Gregory, Assistant Bureau Chief and CIO representing the Maryland State Police.
Thank you. Matthew?
Hello, I am Matthew Tueller. I'm Senator Kagan's Chief of Staff.
Molly?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Molly O'Hara. I am Senator Cruz's Legislative and Office Director.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got a lot of smart people in the room and others who couldn't be here this morning, but who are contributing and will contribute to our work. I would just want to do some quick opening remarks as chair, and then Arnold is going to put up the agenda for the day, and we will kick off. Let me just say that my personal preference is that you all stay unmuted unless you have crying babies or yapping dogs. Those are my exceptions. If you're on the floor at a 911 center, obviously you will likely want to stay mute. If you can stay on camera, I think that makes it closer to an in-person meeting. So I want to hear from everybody. I will call on folks if I haven't heard from you for a while, or I think you've got something to say. You can either use the raise hand feature at the bottom, or you can raise your hand, and I will really try to stay vigilant, backed up by others if I don't see it. My friend and former Senate colleague, Ed Riley, talked about the 4-year Next Gen 911 Commission that I chaired as literally the most important thing he'd ever done. There's not much that we do in government that is more important than literally life and death. And you guys, many of you, are working in that issue area every day, or you are committed to supporting it. There are annual reports. I'm showing this with our recommendations of the commission. I'm holding up one of the 4.5 years of commission reports, and because of the work of that commission and the legislation that followed with support from mostly all my legislative colleagues, Maryland's at the forefront of shifting to next generation 911. And whether it was staffing, funding, training, oversight, cybersecurity, accountability, mental health care, there were a million aspects that we did. But there's a lot that we have left to do to support our 911 specialists. And that's why Senator Carrozza led the way on creating this work group, and that's why we have work to do here. I want to start with something that I hope will inspire us. If Arnold, if you could share a 1-minute video from MDEM, the Maryland Department of Emergency Management, which actually was also created as a result of the 911 Commission.
In a world where chaos can strike at any moment, I'm in the heart of it all. Yes, sir. Can you verify the address for me? Working hand in hand with fire, EMS, and law enforcement providers, I'm helping people who are calling on what might be the worst day of their lives. I've taught colors through performing CPR on unresponsive family members, and even helped a man who was trapped in his car for 3 days after an accident. When I answer a call, I don't know what to expect. But whatever the emergency, I've been trained to keep a cool head and make decisions fast. I'm Yusenso, and I'm a 911 specialist.
911 specialists are the critical minds that keep emergency response available around the clock to all of Maryland's communities, and they want you to join them. Scan the code on your screen or visit 911.maryland.gov/pages/careers to see positions available in your area and learn how to apply.
Thank you, Arnold. So why don't you just bring up the agenda really quickly? And I want to acknowledge, Kevin, do you want to say a quick hi?
Hi, this is Kevin Canale, Legislative Director at the Maryland Association of Counties, MACo. Appreciate the invite, and I'm eager to hear about all of your work.
Thank you. Kevin served on the 4-year 911 Commission, Next Gen 911. It was an integral part. And obviously in Maryland, 911 is handled at the county level. So MACo is a critically important partner in all of this. Arnold, the agenda, if you would. Just want to lay out what we're going to be doing today. So I think, so number one was introduction and opening remarks. So since some of you don't have access to be able to read this, I'm going to read it briefly. The recap and putting it in context, I think it's clear to everybody why this work is so important. Today, we're going to review where we are now, the work that's already done, and then where we need to get in order to write a report to the governor and the legislature. We're going to review each of the 3 subcommittees. There will be reports based on what we discussed and recommendations that have been that are being brought from the subcommittee for the consideration of the full group. And we definitely want feedback and ideas and suggestions. We are far from done. So these are all preliminary. There is nothing here that is in stone. This is a fluid process. We will have some preliminary policy recommendations, but some of those are, again, we've got time to explore, get more facts, hear from more experts, and move forward. We're going to talk about the rhythm of how we're going to move forward, and then we will adjourn. And I am hoping to give you a little bit of your time back. It is currently scheduled as a 2-hour meeting, but let's see how concise we can be, but thorough, and move forward. Any questions, problems, or suggestions about the agenda? Hearing none. Let's shift to subcommittee reports. Arnold, why don't we start with the recruitment and training subcommittee? And Shar, I don't know if you are at your desk yet or on your way. Hello, Delegate Woods. But obviously, if we can't get people in the room, in the 911 center, the public safety answering point, then we're not going to be able to go from there and take care of them and help them with good retirement benefits. So getting them in the room is the place we start. Arnold, let's figure out. So again, I want to acknowledge all the tremendous work that that Arnold Aja has done. So I think I'm going to lay out some stuff, but I want every member of the work group and of the subcommittee to feel free to weigh in. So the challenge is that we have a lot of vacancies. It's a hard job. It's a stressful job, and not everybody could do it even if they wanted to. And so the question is, how do we identify folks? And this subcommittee work group to the work group came up with a number of ideas, and we learned from what others have done. So high schools, and Tania, if you want to share, is Tania in the room yet? Tania Reddick talked about how they are partnering with 2 high schools that's been successful. They're looking to work under career and technical education, and they're starting students as young as 10th grade with an opportunity to do internships in the PSAP, the Public Safety Answering Point, or 911 centers, in 11th and 12th grade, with the hopes that they would then get a job and they would be really well prepared. And they are looking to provide pay for the internships. Prince George's County is looking to emulate some of that and has a meeting coming up. And all PSAPs on the Zoom have looked at doing outreach to high schools. I should add that, let's see, then Community College, Harford County is looking to reestablish a program that started before COVID. And MIMS, Randy, talked about how he's been working with colleges on EMS-related programs. And the question is whether that could be extended. But he is working with Anne Arundel, Carroll, the Community College, Baltimore County, and Cecil Community Colleges. Before we leave education, I should say that I talked to the University of Maryland College Parks person and asked whether they have anything, any thought, any possibility. Is there a lane that could be expanded to maybe include 911 specialists or even planting the seed? I think it's a job track that most people just don't even think about because these specialists are generally invisible unless there's a crisis. People don't think of it as a career track. So he's going to look into that and get back to me. So I just want to add that. Any pause for a moment on education? Yes, Delia Riley, please.
So could we start with, does someone know actually what are the qualifications of the specialists? 'Cause I'm not familiar with that. So what are the current qualifications so we know what they have to do ahead of time? Are there any?
There are a lot. Actually, they have to be certified. There's training, there's all that. Let's see. Sharif, do you want to take that? And again, to the degree that people can be on camera, that would be great. And then I don't want to call on you and have you taking a bio break and not be available.
So if they could, when they're going through that, if they could, state the qualifications that they have to have prior to going in, and then what qualifications they can actually work on while they're in the process through the apprenticeship or what have you.
Love that.
That'd be helpful.
Well, one of our amazing 911 specialists who represents that community on the 911 board is Sharif Thomas. Why don't you start us off and then anyone else can weigh in?
Yes, ma'am. So for Montgomery County, our requirements for hire is the 18 years of age, and we do require you to have either a high school diploma or a GED. We also will hire if you have a green card, work visa, a social security number, or TIN. So we do hire that group as well. And when you go through our training program, we will get you qualified in everything that we need, including EMD, EPD, EFD, CPR, and everything as well.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
That was helpful. Thank you.
Tamara, do you want to add on Harford County?
We have a very similar pre-hire qualifications, GED or high school diploma. We do a typing test. Last I knew, the minimum typing speed was 30 words a minute, and then a physical to include a drug screening and a hearing test. And then we also do the critical testing, which is a paid service. And then we use members of our own center to set a parameter of expectation for candidates to meet.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else want to weigh in? Stacy, you got something? Major Gregory? Okay, moving on. Delia Riley, is that helpful?
Yes, thank you very much.
It should be noted, and I don't think this has changed, that it generally takes about 8 to 12 months to go from someone walking in the door to being able to handle 911 calls on their own. There is a sort of ride-along concept where people are listening to you handling, and they can intervene if there's an error or needs assistance and all that, but it takes a while. And so it's an expensive process, which is why we want them well-trained. And then the next work group, we're going to talk about retention, because once we invest that much time, we want them to stick around. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Please.
And again, this probably needs to be homework that we'll follow up on, but I'm a member of the Apprenticeship 2030 Commission. And we have, very ambitious goals on increasing the number of apprenticeships across the in all sectors. And we have had discussions on this commission about pre-apprenticeship programs, credentialed apprenticeships that go through the Department of Labor. So I'm wondering if maybe one piece that we could possibly just follow up on, is to see if there, could be some possibilities, because we really want to expand apprenticeships from, there's been a focus on the trades as needed, but also to look into, the public safety efforts to increase apprenticeships.
Thank you for that. I think I'll take it out of order, but to speak to that, I should tell you that I talked to Secretary Montero, the Department of Service and Civic Innovation, about the idea of having a service year option in a PSAP, in a 911 center. And he was very enthusiastic. So I can either do that now or we can come back to that. But I want to make sure that we have the time to talk about that. Shifting to summer youth programs, both Baltimore City and Prince George's County are having paid folks who are having this experience. And the question is, can they be retained? Some Prince George's had experience that they enjoyed the program and then they move on to college. And we've got to figure out, can they do college, but also keep working in 911? So summer youth programs. Anyone else doing summer youth that they want to share that wasn't on that subcommittee meeting? Stacy, do you have anything that's interesting that you're doing in Worcester County?
Yes, ma'am. We've partnered with our technical high school to have a program. Right now, the program is focused more on firefighter EMT career path, but we have gone to those classes and spoke and are trying to encourage a path specific for 911 specialists. It's what we're working on.
Great. Ashley, anything in Carroll that's interesting on this? Summer programs, getting young people involved?
No, unfortunately, we don't. The county in itself does, but we struggle with the confidentiality part and stuff like that of bringing them into the 911 center.
So how do others that are doing this addressing that? Because that's a valid concern. Tamara?
We're in the same boat, Nash, as Ashley in Carroll, that confidentiality, we actually have an NDA that folks sign. But we've
Non-disclosure
also,
agreement?
yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
And then we've also, I don't want to say trimmed down, but we used to do a lot more, we call them sit-alongs. Somebody was interested and they're like, can I just come in for a few hours? And what we found though is some of the younger folks, you know, when we have an in-house academy that's 6 weeks. So during that in-house academy, there's a heavy emphasis on mental health. We offer, you know, information on stress relief and how to handle hard calls and things like that. And our administration is concerned that bringing somebody in off the street without those tools may be too drastic. They may experience shell shock and they're like, there's definitely, you know, no place for me here, versus somebody who's came in and had some training in those areas. So it's a very fine line right now.
Yes. So as we go through each of these, so high school and community college, it seems like everybody thinks that's a good idea, and I didn't hear any pushback on any of that. So this summer program, before we go on, confidentiality and stress are the two concerns that I'm hearing. Is there a workaround? Is there a way of thinking about this? Again, this is preliminary feedback that we could consider for including in our report.
I have a question.
Please, Delegate Woods.
Have we considered maybe looking for some people who have had or can get the mental health first aid training? They have it both ready for youth and adults. Maybe that would help to curtail some of the concerns that they have about people coming in to sit in. In other words, that training can be done in a day. Would that be something that would be sufficient to kind of help people to be able to adjust to that?
Tamara, can you speak to that, please?
So we have a peer support team on hand. Nothing as extravagant as some of the agencies have, but our folks are trained in peer support and some mental health. I think it's you know, they're on the floor as well. It's not a position where they're not working, so it's a matter of if they're here or not. And then again, you know, how much time do you invest in someone who, you know, they just want to come and sit for 2 or 4 hours to see what the job is about? Do you say, okay, but before you hit the floor, you have to spend an hour? And I'm not at all, Delegate Woods, downplaying your suggestion because it's phenomenal. But where do we find that balance of, let's make sure we give this 30 minutes to give them some brief information and then transition to the floor? Maybe hit home a few points before they do so.
Anyone else? Brian, I don't want to have to call on everybody. Please feel free to pop in. We want to learn from you. I want to know what's happening.
So, Senator Kagan, can I just do a follow-up?
Sure, please, Delegate Woods.
And then I apologize because I didn't realize who was just speaking. My apologies. But my question was, would that be a barrier to kind of have a sit-down little orientation for somebody that's coming in for 2 to 4 hours? I just feel like that could be more helpful than harmful.
Yeah, I think if we fine line, maybe a set of 6 things that we want to speak to them about, or just set a defined, okay, we're going to spend 30 minutes talking about this and then go forward. I think that could absolutely work and absolutely be helpful.
So I imagine that there is the fine line, as you said, and it's got to be worth the time investment in someone. It's got to pay off with, hopefully, if a person down the road or something. Are you good, Delegate Woods?
That sounds good to me. It was just an idea to look at a way. I think it's always important to look at a way to strategize how we utilize the people that come in.
100%. I think it's something that we need to noodle about and think about and see whether we can figure out a workaround, because we can't protect people from the call that's unexpected, because that's one of the challenges of being a 911 specialist is you don't know whether it's going to be my dog ate my homework, or, I'm about to shoot my girlfriend. So, yeah.
And I think we could also set dates, maybe say, okay, the 911 center is going to have, host 4 people, and then we'll, identify those people and then say, okay, you'll need to come in at this time for a 30-minute pre-visit orientation or whatever you want to call it. That way it's not 30 minutes every time for every person. I think that might help as well, presenting it that way.
Okay, so let's all keep thinking about that. Bryant, were you going to add any thoughts here?
Yeah, one thing that we ran into with people coming in and sitting was the CGIS issue.
Good
So
call.
we
Why
had
don't you
to
translate what that is for those who don't know?
basically it's the criminal justice information system and the national
Federal.
NCIC and
Yep.
meters and everything else for the criminal justice, how you run people and everything like that. We ran into that issue of before anybody comes in and sits, they have to go through, I forget which part of it is. There's a 30-minute meters or CGIS thing that they have to sit through, as well as we make them sign like Tamara an NDA to come in there and sit, because we get a lot of local people and they hear names and associate it. So that is a
Yes.
challenge we ran into.
Okay, that's really important. And that goes not just for a high school or college student or summer youth program participant, but for applicants. So there's the 2 parts. There's the confidentiality. I'm hearing that my next door neighbor has this, that, or the other issue, and I can't blab about that. And then the other part is background checks. Let me take a quick detour on background checks for a second, because background checks, because you have access to federal databases, and because we only want the right people under the headset. So one of the things that the subcommittee did not get to, but I had a conversation with a PSAP director about background checks and drug testing. So we should talk briefly about that, Arnold, and add that to our list. And I want to know what you all think of that. Drug testing, we don't want people coming in drunk or stoned, obviously, and being under the headset. At the same time, now that cannabis is legal, there are people who believe that if they, used cannabis over the weekend and they're coming in 3 days later, it's out of their system, or if they partook 2 years ago or something, that shouldn't be a disqualifier. I'd love to know whether there are counties that have updated their laws, their rules, their guidelines on background checks, include specifically on drug use. I'd love to hear from any of the PR, the HR or PSAP folks on that. Yes, Brian.
It's funny you mention this. We actually have a policy that you cannot use any cannabis. It is a instant termination, and you sign that as soon as you're hired. It's one of your first signing documents. It doesn't matter whether Maryland has it as it's legal. In our realm, because it's a public safety thing, it's no different than a police officer or anything else. Like
So
everybody equal.
I can go on a bender and drink all weekend, and that's fine. But if I use cannabis, I'm fired.
Well, the cannabis and the alcohol. So there
Oh,
are,
it's both.
I think
Okay.
there is a policy on all that. You can't be intoxicated, can't use drugs, et cetera, et cetera. We do have a policy that people sign.
So can you just clarify just a little bit more? Ever on my own time when I'm off duty a year ago?
Cannabis as long as you're employed with the 911 center, you cannot use cannabis. As for alcohol, obviously you can't come to work intoxicated. So
okay. And is that a longstanding policy? Has it been revisited since cannabis was legalized, decriminalized and then legalized?
After it was became legalized, it was revisited and revised.
Sounds like not revised so much though, or it's clear it's tougher.
It is tougher. They have made it tougher.
Okay, that's really helpful information. Have you gotten pushback? And is there anyone that you have wanted to hire who was qualified and they said, look, I'm on vacation, I used?
We really haven't gotten any pushback from it.
Okay.
People want to read it and they understand it, and when we explain it to them, they say, "Oh, well, that makes sense."
Okay. All right. I'm going to want to hear from others. Kevin Canale.
Yeah, Senator, I think for clarity, I just want to say that I think some of this is due, especially for cannabis, to the fact that there's no immediate testing for cannabis, right? Like you said earlier, it remains in your system. So if you come to work, if for alcohol, of course, they can give you a breathalyzer, but there's no way to tell if someone is currently intoxicated on cannabis or if it's just in their system. I'm not saying that's absolutely the reason, but I know that's part of the conversation among counties trying to figure this stuff out. And the second piece is federal funding, and the requirement to have a drug-free workplace. So there are always concerns that you could lose out on federal funding if you don't adhere to those policies, particularly when it comes to public safety, and highways, for what it's worth.
Okay. Well, federal funding has gotten so iffy lately.
Yes, I
Who
mean,
knows whether that's a relevant consideration, at
yes.
least now anymore. But
Totally.
let me just push back on one thing, Kevin. As you know, I've worked on DUID, driving under the influence of drugs, and there is technology that does
Right.
that can identify. There's like a panel of 12 or 13 drugs that it can do through an oral swab. And
Right.
so whether it's cannabis, cocaine, methamphetamines, benzos, there's a whole panel, and that technology is only getting better. And
Right.
so we've been working on putting it roadside with our police officers. Seems possible to maybe have it available for, instant drug tests, random drug tests or something in a PSAP possibly. But
Absolutely. And your work is great on this issue, obviously. And I think as that technology becomes more readily available, and again, this is an evolving conversation, but I know
yes.
like our human resources officers were just having a conversation the other day about what to do with cannabis in terms of workplace policies. And these things come up, but I agree with you, as technology evolves and get better and it's more readily available, that's certainly a factor that we can weigh in.
Okay, that's so helpful. Shar, Stacy, Sharif, does anyone do anything differently than what we heard from Bryant in Dorchester County? Okay, Shar is shaking her head no.
No,
Sharif?
we do not let cannabis use go through.
Okay, Sharif,
Same
Montgomery
with
County?
Montgomery. It's the same with us.
Stacy, how do you guys do it?
So we're just a little bit different. We've changed it recently that if someone has a medical marijuana card, then we'll have an interactive process and do our best to do a reasonable accommodation. We've not had that happen yet. We do require drug testing, pre-placement as well as random. But what we're finding is that a lot of people get a medical marijuana card because of anxiety. So it's, do they have the right coping mechanisms and skill set and training to work through that, especially if they get that difficult call. So
Yep.
we
Wow.
haven't had it happen, but we would consider it if they have a medical marijuana card.
Okay, that's so helpful. Thank you. Anyone else have anything on the issue of cannabis, alcohol, other drugs that might preclude people from being under the headset? Okay, I know that was a bit of a detour, so let's go back to other ways of identifying people. And I think this is a conversation, maybe we've kind of gotten there, but maybe that's something, Arnold and David, that we think about as part of an ongoing conversation here. This is obvious, but not obvious. Social media is a great way of reaching the public and identifying people. Obviously, websites, making sure that folks know about vacancies. And then Ann Pingle is not in the room, but Anna Rundle and Hartford is in the room. So Tamara, I'm going to call on you in a second. So recruitment bonuses and retention bonuses. Money talks. It's a hard job. And so recognizing that and getting people some bonus money is important. So let's talk briefly about that. Anne Arundel has currently, for the last few years, a recruitment bonus of $5,000, which is real money, $2,500 after the 5-week classroom training, and $2,500 after completion of the on-the-job training after a period of time. And they've seen good payout, no pun intended, in terms of the number of applicants, and they are looking at that to see whether people are staying beyond the bonus period. So they may push some of that back further to make sure people aren't just getting the 2,500 and then bailing, because that's a big investment in folks. Hartford, Tamara, do you want to do that?
So we don't offer any bonus for onboarding. They do, or they did for a while for EMS, but for dispatch, as far as retention, not necessarily recruitment, but to help us get over the hump this summer, we have what we call forces. So we have to have a minimum number of personnel on the floor to function. And I want to say it was February or March, we ended up with over 90 mandates in the entire month. Which is crazy numbers for us. So
and when you say mandates, it's requiring you to come in, even though it wasn't your shift. Is that what you mean?
No, ma'am. So either come in 4 hours early, because we're one of the last counties with an 8-hour shift. So you're either forced in early or forced over. We try really hard to not force in early on your first day, and we try really hard to not force over on your last day. If you've already worked voluntary overtime early, we try not to hold you over. There's a lot of play in there that, stipulations. But we did for the summer between the union and then Ross Coates, who I answer to, the director of communications. He worked with the county, and we were able to do a $500 bonus for June, July, and August. So if you don't take any last minute sick leave, if you don't call out and require a mandate, as a person, you get, a single employee will get a $500 merit bonus. And then as a group, if we have less than 50 mandates for the month, which I think we're at 12 now, and we're at the 27th of the month. So money talks, really.
Absolutely.
We get an additional $500. So people stand to gain $3,000 this summer.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, some people don't care. $500 to them is nothing. But it's definitely proven that it's very worthwhile.
Sure. Let me also say that Hartford County, we had a report that they get a $5,000 bonus at the end of their 6-month probationary period. But if they leave early, and I don't have all the details on this, they have to repay it. So there is the clawback. I want to move quickly. There are other creative approaches. Again, Anne Arundel has hired a communications recruiter who has helped people walk through the process of applying, which can be daunting to some folks. Montgomery County has a recruitment team, and they went down to Joint Base Fort Myers in Virginia to recruit military personnel. I don't know if Montgomery is unique, if anyone wants to weigh in on that. There's a Citizens Police Academy that's a 15-week program, and that is included. Worcester goes to community events to show day in the life of a 911 specialist, works with their 10 volunteer firefighters. And then we also talked about outreach to federal employees, which no one seems to have started yet. But there is a bump up in applications, and Anne Arundel talked about that. So anything that anyone wants to speak to about any of those items or anything not on that list that you're doing or you've heard about within the state of Maryland or anywhere else in the country that we can learn from or should consider? Yes, Brian.
One thing that Dorchester does is if you are a certified 911 dispatcher, we offer you a $5,000 sign-on bonus, which is distributed out over its 3 years. So you get like 1,000 up front, and then the rest is distributed by the time you're done your 3 years. We did explore an option of a longevity bonus to try to keep people from leaving. So basically it was you stayed 5 years and you got $1,000
Brian, Can you hold that for when we get the retention? Because that's the next subcommittee, because I totally want to hear about that. But this is
Yep.
recruitment. If we can just do recruitment now. Anything else? Anyone doing anything creative? Shar, you doing anything cool in Prince George's on recruitment?
Nothing other than we have the summer youth program and
Right.
coming up with the high school program.
Yes, we did talk about that while you were
yes.
transferring from your car.
Yes.
Stacy, Sharif, you good?
Madam Chair.
Yes, please, Senator Croza.
Before we transition to the next subcommittee,
Yes.
Going back to recruitment and what might really resonate with students, I think, I know we had an extended conversation about maybe, the experience in the dispatch centers, but those videos, like the video that you just showed at the beginning of this meeting, those videos in the schools could be a very powerful tool. And again, talk about sparking interest. And, because as I travel around to my technical high schools, I see that it usually is some type of, local leader who's involved in that career. But, along with that visual, in other words, when they heard that exchange of life and death and the dispatcher talking, the specialist talking about their role in that, that's very powerful. So there might be, instead of completely going through all these protocols with taking students in, you could actually, maybe concise, basically tighten that up, have them come into a public safety building, and then do maybe a quick walkthrough, but they could still experience that and really excite them.
I totally agree. Okay, so we already referenced briefly the Department of Service and Civic Innovation, which has the deadline is coming up for PSAPs to apply to have a service year option participant. It would start September. I think it's September 11th, which is 9/11, so that's kind of perfect. The deadline is coming up in early July, so you want to check on that. I'm just going to wrap this subcommittee up. Application requirements. There was conversation about whether driver's licenses should be required and part of the application process. There are mixed practices, and some places they said we're more rural, people need cars. Personally, I think sometimes if they rely on Lyft or Uber, or my next door neighbor will drive me or something if I'm called in, but not everybody has great bus or public transportation access. The question is, do we lose people with disabilities? Do we lose people who are not drivers by making that restriction? So that was a conversation, and I think we should continue in that conversation if anyone wants to mention that. We also we discussed whether you should be required to be a citizen. Sharif already referenced that a green card, a TIN number. We also talked about the online personality test and whether that's necessary. Does that screen some folks out who could be good? And the critic call test, which was also referenced of are those biased or problematic? And we talked about returning citizens, folks who have served their time in jail, and whether they could be good under the headset. And the answer was basically depends on what their crime was and depending on whether they can pass the background check and again have access to the FBI data and all of that. We talked about bilingual 911 specialists and whether bringing language fluency is helpful. And we learned that there was bonus pay in some 911 centers. Last thing from this subcommittee that I'm going to mention, I think you probably all know, that APCO, the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials, is having its annual conference, and it's in Baltimore in July. And I'll be there. A number of people on this Zoom will be there. And so we just want to encourage you. There's a 2-day portion on recruitment that Tania Reddick talked about. She's in charge of that. And so just want to encourage you to consider going to that and checking on that. Arnold, anything on this subcommittee that you want to amplify or add that I didn't reference, and then questions, comments from the group before we move on? Arnold.
I think that was a good highlights of the work we did.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone have comments, suggestions? Yes, Cecilia, and then Delegate Woods.
Thank you.
Cecilia
I just
Warren.
wanted to add my comment regarding the driver's license suggestion. In reviewing the survey results, it demonstrates that of the responding PSAPs, 18 require a driver's license in order to submit an application. And although this may seem novel to some people who are accustomed to having a car, driving is not an essential function of working as a 911 specialist. And California and the state of Washington have already enacted laws that do not allow for a driver's license requirement for positions that do not include driving as an essential function. So if you're not assigned a vehicle from your employer, if you do not have to drive as an essential function, then it really does not have any bearing on whether or not you could be a successful employee. So I would urge the group to consider that would expand your applicant pool. And all of these suggestions we've previously discussed, they're excellent suggestions, but they don't do anything to expand the pool, which I think we also need to do that.
Yes.
So that's that was my thought on that. Thank you.
Cecilia, thank you so much for adding that. Anyone want to respond to Cecilia? Anyone in their counties thinking about modifying that practice that does or doesn't? Okay, I think it's a valid conversation. So if you don't want to speak up now, but want to consider being in touch with Arnold or me or anyone, please don't hesitate. Delegate Woods, did you put your hand down?
I just had a really quick question regarding the conference you were talking about in Baltimore. Could you put that in the chat, that information, or can that be sent to us?
Yes, that the chat I think is not enabled for this, but absolutely it can be part of the follow-up. And I'll be speaking there. The governor may, we're trying to work it onto his schedule as well. But it's the last few days of July. Okay, Sharif, Montgomery County.
Yes, ma'am. So to Cecilia's point, I think one of the reasons why we also do the driver's license, I believe we do not do it, but some of the friends that I've talked to about joining our 911 center has realized that to get to these locations is very strenuous and it takes a long time. So working a 12-hour shift and probably doing a 3-hour ride by transportation home and then back seems to be a lot. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of centers require the license, because it's easier to get to, especially for emergency situations where you have to, as we call it, bail out of your main center to your backup center. It's easier for you to have a vehicle that you can go from one location to the other than it is to try to catch public transportation.
So I totally agree and understand. And having just broken my elbow and not, there are people who can't drive or can't drive for a short or long period of time. There are backup options, whether that's Lyft or Uber, whether that's a friend or relative driving. I just want to push back a little, and everything you said is valid. I just wonder whether we should think outside the box. I'm just going to do kind of a not ideal analogy here, but if someone has a young child or young children, that shouldn't be a barrier, but I think it's a valid, do you have access to childcare? Are you going to be able to be a reliable person? It's part of the conversation about getting to your shift with a vehicle, and you're going to arrive on time, however it is you make that work. And the same thing, whether you have an ailing spouse or young children or something, we still hire people regardless of those. Anyone else? So Sharif, I think that's totally valid. I think it's probably different in each jurisdiction, but I think Cecilia's point is well taken. So let's continue that part of the conversation. I'd like to move on to, we have 2 more subcommittees. Is there anything else before we leave recruitment? We didn't talk about training, but I want to be clear that a lot of that is based on requirements, certification. So, Shar, why don't you do like 3 sentences on the training aspect?
Our training is, well, overall, training as a 911 specialist is critical. And I think we made a lot of progress with the commission and the requirements for everyone to have 911 specialist training and for the board to provide guidelines on that. I think it's very, very, very important that everyone have a base level of training so that we can continue to serve the residents consistently across Maryland.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Shar.
Okay, Madam Chair, asking
yeah,
a question.
Yeah,
Follow up
Delegate
on that.
Woods. Sorry, Delegate Riley, Delegate Woods.
Okay, thank you. So when you talk about the training, so when we were talking about the qualifications, you had mentioned certification. So I guess the training is part of the certification process. Can you like detail on that? Because I know like through MIMS, like with fire and EMS, I mean, it's hours and hours of training and so many different steps. Is this one certification we're talking about and one training? Is it several? How many hours? Do they have to continue trainings and come? So can someone just
That's great.
expand on that a little bit?
So it is multifunctional. It is police,
Okay.
fire, paramedic. But Tamara, why don't I call on you on that? But happy to have anyone else speak to that. But let's have one person lay out the different certifications, and then we go to Delegate Woods.
So for our training process, we have that 6-week in-house academy. They are certified in EMD, which is emergency medical dispatch, EFD, which is fire, and EPD, which is police. And those are accreditations through IAED, which is the International Association of Emergency Dispatchers. They're a protocol-based or program, and we have an electronic version. There's also paper versions, but basically they learn how to use the protocol. So it's the standard of care that Senator Kagan was referring to. So every caller that calls in who's fallen gets to ask the same question for the standard of care. And then they're also certified through MIMS as an EMD, emergency medical dispatcher. And that's all within that initial training phase. And then every other year we have to recertify those EMD, EFD, and EPD. And while we do that, also through the International Academy, there are news articles and quizzes that are issued to us because we have to have a minimum number of hours of continuing education in order to recertify. We actually have to input those hours. So they have to know we've spent 24 hours during the last 2 years looking at medical scenarios or answering questions. I don't remember off the top of my head what those parameters are as far as hours, but it is preset. And then when we go to the conference, like she was referring to, we'll get what's called CDE, continuing dispatch education. So
what you're saying, so this kind of goes back to that it's very expensive to train someone, so you do want to retain them because you've made this big investment. So I'm assuming during that 6 weeks when they're going through all these certifications, they're being paid as an employee, correct?
Correct. And then if they
You're
separate
working-
from employment, they actually sign a contract. If they should separate from employment, basically, like we just had somebody resign because this isn't for them. They couldn't handle the emotion of the 911. I don't think that the county's going to penalize that person. But if somebody proves to, I don't know, just not care and resign, they are required to pay back the amount of money because it is quite expensive for those certifications.
So is the data showing that most people that, you know, you've kind of vetted, I guess, through the qualifications and have spoken with them and done, you know, a few things, most of them do get through and stay, or I guess
Correct.
part
Yeah.
of them? Okay.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you. Delegate Woods?
Okay, so we were
Is the data
we were talking about thinking outside of the box. I don't know how feasible this is, but one of the things that my office has been trying to do as a direct result of a lot of these terminations from employment was to look at alternate opportunities for training and so on and so forth. And what we have discovered is that we have a number of churches in my district who actually have, well, some of them call them like university programs, so on and so forth. But some of the large churches in my district actually have classroom settings. Could you have an alternative organization do this training, or could you come in and do it in an alternative organization, i.e. through a church that has a school that has offers training programs? I actually just got a memorandum from another church in Prince George's County that definitely does a lot, and they qualify for the academic whatever requirements you have for churches who do training.
So as far as the protocol training goes, those are taught by certified instructors. I'm not sure that it's something that, you could get a handbook for that could be taught. Somebody from the church may very well become an instructor, but I also don't know what the prerequisites are there. Do you have to have 3 years of dispatch experience before you become an instructor? There's a lot of prerequisite that comes with these certifications just because of the basis of the information that's then being offered.
So I think this is a productive conversation because we have so many talented federal workers who are seeking employment. Arnold, maybe we can put that on the list of things to pursue and explore. That was something we talked about briefly, but let's make sure that we loop in Delegate Woods in that conversation. I'd like to move on, and before I do, Arnold, can you just bring up the screenshot, please, of the MACO study? So I just want to reassure you that this is vitally important, worth your time, because there continue to be national studies and local studies. Let's see, is there a masthead there? Oh, okay. Yeah, there is. Carbine is a very well-recognized national consultant, and NENA is the National Emergency Numbers Association. And it's just the reality is that there are vacancies, there are problems, and that's why we are doing this. And if you go back to the MACO piece, Maryland is in much better shape than most states, but we have a lot more work to do. So Kevin, if you're on, if you want to add anything about this study, and then we'll go to retention, which is important. Okay, and I even posted this link. We'll include this link for you to read it on your own time, both the study and the MACO article. Arnold, if we can include that in the follow-up.
Sure.
All right, and let's stop sharing and go back, and let's go to the second subcommittee, which is retention. I'm going to do that much more quickly, although it is obviously the fundamental piece. So when we talk about, now we've done the background checks, we've hired the people, we have found them, identified them, they're excited about it. How do we make sure we keep them under the headset for years, for as many years as they can do? So obviously compensation is always an option. The retention subcommittee talked about a minimum salary like we did with teachers with the blueprint, and whether that's something that we should think about. There is an unfunded mandate. We don't like telling counties, the state doesn't like telling counties what they have to do, but is there a threshold that we should be considering to make sure that we can help with recruitment? Scheduling shifts. Talked about, there's some, I think it was Stacy who said that you're the last ones doing 8s. There are counties who do 12s. And in Montgomery County, I thought it was interesting. Every October, you can bid on the shift that you want. And Sharif comes on at 3 a.m. and that's his preference, right? Did I get that right, Sharif?
No, ma'am. I actually start work at 3 p.m. and I work till 3 a.m.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. So similar but different. So it's and that's his preference, and that's what works for him. And so being able to pick that, keeping our 911 specialists happy because it works with their body clock or their family demands and all that. Some people have other jobs. And having heavy workload and then some days off gives them that. Harford County is piloting an incentive program that Tamara already referenced with the $500 bonus, the individual or for the team, which I think is very exciting. And recognition and awards. Montgomery County has honor awards and Specialist of the Year. There's also a very cool mural on the wall of the PSAP. And when you save a life by talking someone through CPR or you help deliver a baby, your name goes up. And I think that's really a point of pride that is exciting. Harford implemented a Strive program, which with time off, prizes, gift cards, and all that. And Worcester picks a week to honor and celebrate 911 specialists with food and activities. And there is a national 911 specialist. They call it something else, but not our word. And there are a lot of special events nationally and around the state. Workplace culture is critically important. Fitness equipment, breathing exercises, a break room, a debrief room, a mental health counselor, either in the space or easily accessible. All of that as part of the Live Well wellness program. And then career advancement, making sure that we know that, after you've been here a while, you can move up the ladder, make more money, have more responsibility. And let's see, on mental health, we also have peer support groups, an employee assistance program, and other wellness program. So that's the quick overview from that committee, that subcommittee. So let's hear from this room. What wasn't included or what can you say more about? Captain Stevenson, what do you do in Bowie that keeps people there?
Outside of the benefits, compensation and things like that, I think a very large part is that our 911 specialists just have to feel that they're appreciated by the organization. It's a very large part. I know that when National Public Safety and the word they use is telecommunicators.
Yes.
The
Right.
National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. I know, admittedly, our organization dropped the ball on it one year, and there wasn't a whole lot of fanfare about it. And our specialists felt some kind of way about it, and they felt underappreciated. And I think it's the little things like that that go a long way. So, outside of those larger um, areas of compensation and benefits, I just think organizationally there has to be a level of recognition. I think the idea of awards, incorporating them into the awards. The police department has very large award functions, and sometimes the civilians are roped into that, but I think they need a larger part of that, maybe even their own, so that they don't feel like they're just, like a third wheel into those types of events and things. So that's what I think would be important. Is just organizationally, we have to recognize them.
Yes, yes. Delegate Riley, did you have something you wanted to add? And then Tamara. Delegate Riley, you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Tamara?
I just want to piggyback off of what Captain Stevenson mentioned. I'm in a precarious position, I guess we'll say. I'm the manager on duty with the least amount of seniority in management. So I was here for 19 years before I promoted, and I'm still very active. I work a lot of overtime on the floor. I work a lot of overtime. It doesn't matter if it's call taking or on a radio. I'm not just, oh, hey, I'm a manager. And that's been huge with our team. I think what people want to see is that you can give true, honest value to what they're feeling. So when they come to you and say, I'm so stressed out because we implemented this policy and every time this happens, I have to do this.
Yes.
Don't be the yes man. Don't sit there and say, okay. Be able to say, yes, that same experience happened to me. And I think just, all we hear is administration doesn't understand. They call them in Harford County, they call them the people on the other side of the wall. come in, sit down in your center. Even if you just spend 15 minutes in there drinking your coffee and show face, that is huge.
Yes.
They just want to know you can give true value to what they're feeling.
Yes. I can tell you, so Senator Carozza joined me on one of my PSAP visits. I have been to all 24 counties 911 centers, and just making the time and thanking them and seeing them and having an elected official, Teresa, Delia Riley, if I go back to Harford County, I would love to invite you to come along. I'm sure you've been there before, but I'd love for us to go together and these folks, and that's why I call them the courageous women and men under the headsets who save lives and property every day. They are amazing. In Delegate Woods, I was just back in Prince George's County for the 5th time, I think, in Bowie. So you are welcome to come and join me if I go back again anytime soon. Char's a great tour guide and leader. So
Absolutely love to do that.
that'd be awesome.
Just
Okay.
for a point for the people on the call that don't know this, I was sharing, I don't even know if you saw it, Senator Kagan, that the reason that I had to go off screen is because I was still working. I actually just wrapped out. I work a midnight shift, but I work for DC, so I am a hotline worker for Child Protective Services, and I was actually dealing with a youth division on a hot case a minute ago. So I'm really familiar with this work in a lot of ways, and so I'm very much interested in coming and seeing and having some other questions. And then I just have a quick question, Senator Kagan.
Yes, please.
I know the question was answered, but I don't know that I heard the answer well.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I know you said you have to be Arnold, I believe. You start at 18 years old. Is there an age limit? In other words, how old on the other end?
Oh, at the other end, Stacy, if they're walking, talking, breathing, and can do the job, can they be 92?
We don't have an age limit, and to be honest, we have a lot of employees in our county, not just in emergency services, that are in their 70s and even 80s, especially in the libraries.
Awesome. All right. Marvelous. All right. So if there's nothing else on retention and benefits, and it's a big piece. Arnold, tossing it to you.
One thing that you and I talked about and made me think of when Captain Stevenson talked about organizational recognition and Miss Tamara talked about empathy, is encouraging self-reflection from leadership, whether that is through maybe the Maryland 911 board meeting the directors and encouraging them to, self-reflect and how they can promote confidence and their staff and encourage them. So that's
Great. Yep. We're going to shift to Senator Carozza in a moment. I just want to recognize Arnold's created a survey and sent to all 24 counties. We got 21 responses, which is, we wanted 24 and we tried really hard, but I think we're still stuck at 21. But that's supposed to be a great number. And so we appreciate the responsiveness of the counties. And so Arnold, before we go to retirement, is there anything that you want to show? I mean, it's always such small type, but is there a screen that you want to share?
Well, when we talk about recruitment and retention, it has to do with compensation, right? And so we surveyed the PSAPs on entry level salaries. We had previous fiscal year information, and we will be following up with the PSAPs based on suggestions to get the latest fiscal 26 information that includes the most recent COLAs. But based on what we had received, just to go over it really quickly, we statewide, the average minimum salary of entry level 911 specialist is around 46,926.
Arnold, I'm going to interrupt because you were smart enough to divide by size population. So you had kind of Papa Bear, Mama Bear, Baby Bear, right?
Yes. So it's probably better to just talk within the sizes, I guess.
Yes.
So probably within small PSAPs, the average minimum entry level salary is 239. We did not take in consideration the trainees for this number because they're not permanent positions yet. But so yeah, and within small PSAPs, average minimum is 45,239.
Minimum and medium.
The average maximum. Oh, okay, yeah, it's probably better to just talk about
Let's
the
just talk about the average in large,
average.
medium, and small, I
So
think would be helpful.
the average minimum in the medium PSAPs is 48,146. So once again, small PSAPs are the ones that have a population of below 100,000. Medium PSAPs have a population of between 100,000 and 400,000 population, and large PSAPs have over 400,000 residents. So medium PSAPs, the average minimum salary is 48,146. And large PSAPs, the average minimum entry level salary is 48,632.
Okay, so pretty similar actually between the large and very similar between large and medium. And the small once again was
45,239.
Okay, so lots of similarity there, actually. I think the changes probably are as they advance, as they have more tenure. I suspect that it goes up, but we don't have time to do that. I really want to shift to retirement. So Senator Carrozza, I really want to thank you for being willing to chair this subcommittee. We have preliminary conversations, but Senator Carrozza is going to kind of paint the picture, and then we're going to have, as we'll talk about afterwards, we're going to have other subcommittee meetings, continue to gather data, and then all of this is going to be proposed or considered for possible legislation. Senator Carrozza, floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to just give a little background of why I was pulled into retirement and this issue related to 911 specialists to begin with, and then I'm going to go into kind of more of an overview before we go into specifics. So I wanted to share with the group, probably about 3 years ago, I was approached by the Fruitland Police Chief. Fruitland, Maryland is in my district in Wycomico County, and the police chief was adamant about really retaining his 911 specialists, extremely concerned about vacancies and what we needed to do to keep our high quality 911 specialists, and specifically pointed to the retirement and specifically pointed to the LEOPS as an option for retirement for 911 specialists. So,
Senator, could you just translate LEOPS?
That's the law enforcement pension system. And so, I came at it with that specific request, as I have through this 911 work group, really want to make sure that it's important that we look at all possible options to strengthen retirement. I think what we have found out through the work of our subcommittee is that that the retirement seems more important to the retention piece and probably less so on recruitment, and meaning that looking at on retention, when we have those high quality 911 specialists that are starting to hit what I call those burnout years, and also having an honest discussion of what does a fair retirement system look like as our 911 specialists, the type of public safety work that they're doing, how is that comparing to other public safety retirements? So with all that said as background, what we did is as part of the survey that Arnold put together, we first wanted to see what were counties currently doing. And we found out that 7 are offering the state pension plan. And we'll go into a little detail on that. 4 had their own county plans, 4 ? If I need to clarify that number, and 10, it was unclear what they were doing. When I was starting to try to understand all this incoming information, I sought out our human resources director in Worcester County, and asked for her assistance to be part of my retirement subcommittee so I could better understand. I thought it was important for the entire work group, not just my subcommittee, but this entire group, first of all, to understand the other session plans and how those are broken down before we would start advocating for any specific recommendations or changes. And what I found through the
Senator
work
Croza, Senator Croza, I just want to, you froze for a period of time, but your audio was still good. So as everybody was able to hear Senator Croza. Okay, please continue.
Thank you. So my point being, we tried to break it down on what are the factors of retirement. And if you look at the key factors, it's the employee contribution, age to retire, years of service to retire, which we really zeroed in on, and the amount of the pension when you retire. So those are the four critical factors. What really came to light, especially from the feedback from Dorchester County, I was looking for Bryant, where the number of years, where, 30 years in this type of position before retirement is just fairly unrealistic, and I think Bryant called it absurd. If you look at the other retirement systems, the law enforcement pension system, LEOPS at 25 years, you look at correctional officers at 20 years, that those would seem to be more in line with the type of duties and responsibilities and stresses that our 911 specialists experience. So what we were trying to do with the subcommittee group, which is why we're going to have the follow-up meetings, is to number one, better understand these factors on how we could possibly improve retirement. And two, and I wanted to, and I'll defer to Senator Kagan on a piece of legislation separate from revamping or a possible retirement system for 911 specialists to talk about incentives. The Senate Bill 759, which would allow eligible retirees age 55 and older to subtract up to $15,000 of their retirement income, the same way that other public safety officials can do. So I wanted to lay that all out. I thought for purposes of this meeting, where we could really hear from those on the front lines of what they believe is really important to strengthening retirement, and two, if there were best practices that one county is doing that is actually working, to make sure that's shared with all the other counties. So I kind of set it up that way, and Chair Kagan, if we wanted to do the feedback on those specific components and then talk about the legislation, or if you want to tee up the legislation, but I just wanted to put all the factors out there that I think we have to consider when we talk about strengthening retirement for 911 specialists.
Senator Croza, I think you did a masterful job at laying out the four factors, and thank you for referring to the legislation. Delegate Woods, Delegate Riley, just to flag for you, the bill that Senator Croza referenced that I sponsored did pass the Senate unanimously, and then it came through late in the year in the session, and so it was in House rules and where it died. We're going to be in conversation with MACo, the Maryland Association of Counties, about any suggestions, issues, concerns they may have, but I've had preliminary conversations, and I am hopeful that we might be able to address anything and see if we can move forward on basically, as Senator Croza kind of referenced it, kind of parity with other law enforcement folks when they retire. So I think you did a great job. We're good. Oh, I should actually, sorry, now that I say that, sorry too. My chief of staff created a flyer. I just should hold that up here for a second. We are, as I go to other PSAPs, we are inviting our 911 specialists to use a QR code to get on a list to learn more about improving their retirement options. So that's something that that we're hoping to engage people who otherwise might not have heard about this legislation.
Thank you,
Would you
Madam
mind
Chair.
sharing that flyer in the group? Thank you
Happy
so
to.
much.
Happy to. Yeah, thank you, Tamara. We will include this then a link or something or as an attachment, Arnold, in our follow-ups.
Yes.
Dynamite. Okay. Senator Croza, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I really wanted to give some of the members on the subcommittee who did share really important information to have them share that with the full work group. So I'll probably start with both Bryant and Stacy on that. And, also if there are counties that have, that something is working with their retirement system, that just, again, I think it could be really a powerful tool for retention. I'll call on Bryant first and then Stacy.
Brian is working to unmute. There we go.
Yep. Yeah. One of the things that I expressed in the subcommittee was, I'll use this example. I have a supervisor who's been at my center for 15 years. He's looking for another job because he cannot physically do this career for another 15 years to meet the 30-year requirement to retire. I mean, like I said, subcommittee, it's absurd. You got to work 30 years in this job when you're just subjected to the same things as fire and EMS and law enforcement. I mean, you don't see it per se, but until we get video 911, but you hear it. So why should we not get the benefits of somebody else? I mean, there's some states that offer a 20-year retirement for dispatchers. They're 25, I think, is a middle compromise between 20 and 30, but at 30 years is just way too long.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Brian.
I can say, Senator Croza, that one of the things that your subcommittee talked about and that others have also talked about is the lack of closure leading to mental health challenges, which is why 30 years is so impossible. People say, oh, but they're not seeing dead bodies on the side of the road and all that. They're hearing about it, which can be more stressful and more traumatic because they don't know that they don't know that the person lived. They don't know that the baby was born healthy. They don't know that the CPR, all that.
Thank you. And it ties directly to the number of service years before retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Stacey, again, I want to publicly thank you on the, before the full work group for the information that you have shared with us. I was a little overwhelmed when I saw the complexity of these retirement issues, and you really brought some clarity to that. I thought you might want to just give a brief overview, but then also maybe since you are actually dealing with those employees that we want to retain and you're getting the questions, if you could also maybe share some of your views as well.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Couple of comments. I agree with everything that Bryant said. 25 years is a long time. To have to go 30 years is even longer. And even on the front end, for new hires that were hired after July 1, 2011, that are in the Maryland State Retirement Pension System, it's 10 years for them even to be vested. We lose in our center, most of them less than the first year. If we hire 3 people, we usually lose 1 of 3, sometimes 2 of 3. So if they're not even making it the first year, they're not going to make it 10 years to be vested, let alone 30 years to retire. The other comment that I would say is that it's a blessing to have a pension, but a lot of employees struggle with that 7% coming out of their check. They want the pension when they go to retire, but 7% is a lot with the cost of things now. So that is a potential barrier as well. The other comment I'd like to share is that a pension is traditionally not 100% of your salary. A lot of people think, oh, well, I'm a government employee, I'm a public servant, I'm going to get a pension. It's not 100%. One of the things our county has done is we do offer employees to do payroll deduction, either pre-tax or post-tax, for a deferred compensation plan. In the private world, most people would hear those as 401ks. Government world, we call it a 457 plan. What our county has done, and we've received very positive feedback, is the county will now match dollar for dollar up to the first $1,000. So if you contribute at least $1,000, you'll get $1,000, stays in that account till you're of retirement age, or you can withdraw them later. But I really feel like it's more than just the pension. That's why we do the deferred comp and then that match. Got really good feedback from our employees on that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
If I could call on some of the other 911 specialists just on the issue of retirement in general for some, feedback to what's been presented and your own experiences. I guess I'll start there with Tam
Sorry,
from Hartford County.
Senator, Arnold Daja has data, thanks to
Okay.
Stacy, that he can share with the group if you want, and then we
And
can
then we
give
can
any
go on.
comments
Sure.
or after that.
Thank you, Chair. And I'd also like to thank Miss Norton. We had difficulty parsing through the retirement information that we got from the survey. Like the Senator Carosa had mentioned, 7 mentioned that they had the state plan, 4 said they had the county plan, and 10 was unclear. And then Miss Norton shared actually this rich information, the Maryland MACO's survey, pension survey, and this will allow the work group to work through and get a better insight into what the different counties offer. So eventually, I think in subsequent meetings, we'll be able to get a better insight and then compare the different offerings and options.
Maybe that's one of the links, Arnold, that could be put in the follow-up.
Yes,
Because
sure.
that offered a lot of information, and I think perhaps Senator Carosa and others on the retirement subcommittee maybe can distill and offer some highlight bullets or something from it. But okay, I'm going to back off now.
So that again, Stacy, thank you for sharing that. And the 4 factors that we talked about that go into a retirement, the contribution, the age, the years of service, and the amount of the pension. And hearing that Worcester County has taken a proactive approach at the county level to do some matching to improve that retirement. Are there any other examples, again, turning to the individual counties, Hartford, Montgomery, Dorchester, that's on the work group call, that you could either identify which of those retirement issues are most important? I think we heard Bryant loud and clear, but if there's also anything else that you're doing at this point to address it as we consider other recommendations to improve the retirement for 911 specialists. And Tamara, would you like to go?
I'll just say that I mirror what he said. I mean, the burnout is real. We'd love to see 20 years. Our corrections here in Hartford County used to be 30, and they just a couple years ago got down to 25 through their union. I would love to see 25. I could retire in 2 years or at least be eligible. It's a lot. And, we keep hearing about staffing shortages. So those of us who will die on this cross, so to say, we're just like, we got to keep doing more. And I can tell just by what he said that Brian is in the same mindset. Like, I'm a giver by nature. And so that's what we do. And we're literally burning ourselves out physically, mentally, psychologically, all of it, because it's our innate desire to help people. And we want to make up for what's lacking. So even more so now, things have changed so much in 23 years. We started out, just to give you an idea, we started out here in Hartford County with 2 radio channels when I started. On the police side, there was a main person and a backup person in the same in fire dispatch. And we now run with 5 police dispatchers and 3 fire dispatchers. So things have grown exponentially. We have Aberdeen Proving Ground within our county. So we see a lot of military folks who I have a huge appreciation for while they have their own 911 center, we do field their calls initially and then transfer them to them. But yeah, with the retirement, and I had mentioned before, and I haven't gotten a response yet on my email, but when I came in 2003, I came in under a different retirement plan. So I'd like to get the exact specifics from the county. And as soon as I get them, I'll share with the group because it's different than what the folks who came in more recently are under.
Thank you. Turn to Sharif from Montgomery County.
Yes, ma'am. In Montgomery County, we just moved to the pension program maybe a couple years ago. Without saying too much, there is a couple issues that we're having that the union is trying to work through. More so going to the fact that when they moved us, we didn't get credited the years that we've already served. So that's one of the issues that the union is currently working on.
What?
Yes. I've been there 7 years and I was credited 2. So, and it was way worse for some of the other people. But we're still new to the pension program. We were originally on the 457, but we do have deferred comp to the union. So the union is working on some things to try to fix what's going on.
Unionization is different in each county, and one of the things that's hard to figure out, what union is Montgomery County in, please?
We are McGeo, Montgomery County Government Employees Union, Local 1994.
So McGeo in Montgomery County, some are SEIU, the service employees, some are AFSCME, American Federation of State County Municipal Employees, some are with police fire, some have their own union, and many have no unions at all. And so it's hard to do sort of one size fits all on this, Senator, as I'm sure you discovered.
So, but I think where there might be consensus is that if there is an issue about determining the years of service that have already been worked that would count towards retirement, I mean, that's something I think that, I don't know where we can be helpful, but, surely, surely that we can't have situations where our 911 specialists are losing years of service when it comes to retirement.
Yeah. All right. So we can talk about some of that offline. Unless there's something that's critically important on retirement subcommittee.
And I think Madam Chair, I think
Please.
again, our follow-up is going to be setting up our follow-on subcommittee meetings.
Yes.
We plan to have Ann Gothrop come in from the state retirement pension system. And Arnold, I think you had a couple other thoughts on our follow-up issues.
So that's exactly where we're going to now. I want to start to wrap us up with an image of next steps. So subcommittee meetings are not live streamed, and therefore the public and other interested parties can't engage with the subcommittees. That's why we really want to make sure that we are cross-pollinating. If you're on one subcommittee, we want you to know about what the other 2 are doing, and we want to certainly be transparent about the process. But I think we believe that we can get a lot more work done in subcommittee and sort of do the deeper dive. So if you are currently on one subcommittee and want to do another one as well, or you want to be informed, please be in touch with us about that. And if you heard anything from any of these 3 subcommittee reports that you take issue with, or that you have other ideas about, or something that wasn't discussed. And Bryant, you had something on retention, and I asked you to hold it for retention, then I forgot to come back to you. Do you want to do that? And then we'll start with talking about the future and the schedule and the plans. Bryant, please.
Yeah. One thing that we explored in Dorchester was a longevity bonus. So basically, it would be 5 years. You get $1,000 per year. You're there 5, and you had to be there the full 5, so you wouldn't get the full bonus to your 6th year. We explored it. We looked at it. It was cheaper to do that than to hire a new hire and train them when you put all the money through. But unfortunately, due to the budgets, it just was not feasible. But we did explore it as an option.
And Tamara, was it Harford County that was doing longevity bonus? We heard about longevity bonus somewhere. I've got it in my notes.
No, we used to and they stopped it. We're trying to do it again. But it's not till, I want to say 20 years.
Stacy, was it Worcester?
Oh, our longevity starts at 20 years as well.
Okay. All right. Well, colleagues, delegates, Senator, I think that's something that we ought to be thinking about. And again, the unfunded mandates thing, I think we have to talk to MACO about that, the Maryland Association of Counties. So Arnold, why don't you help drive this? So we're going to have, why don't you give the rhythm of when our report to the governor and the General Assembly is due, and then we can work backwards and talk about what everyone thinks. And Nisi, if you want to weigh in on any of this, I want to make sure that you are heard, and Major Gregory as well.
So based from last meeting in May, we had come up with a really tentative plan of action on our next steps. The final report is due December 1st, 2025, and we had originally designed or a plan to meet every month and sort of focus on the different areas or subjects. And that was before we came up with the subcommittee process. And we're finding that a lot of our best work and the best ideas are coming in subcommittee. So we're hoping to maybe change this and maybe meet every other month and um yeah and not sure what the committee or the work group feels about that. And
I think I'm going to ask that we will send out blast email. We will have doodle links or something equivalent, and we will keep you engaged. But we want to continue the process. I believe that we've had good conversations. There are so many issues that are kind of in the mix, and that we're going to need to distill those and draft the report. Randy, is there something that you want to add on any of this? Anything experience you've had that can help guide us?
Not really at this point. I think we are definitely willing to talk more about the community college option. Actually, 11 community colleges that offer programs that we certify. So nothing else at this point.
Love that. Great. Cecilia, you have anything I want to just check in on everybody, and then we'll start to do wrap up. And
I don't have any addition. I'm sorry, Senator. I didn't mean to talk.
Please, no, go.
I don't have any additional comments. I'm in agreement with what was just said and with Arnold. Thank you.
Okay. Major Gregory?
No, ma'am. No additional comments. Thank you.
Okay. Nisi, anything from MDM? Thoughts?
No comments at this time.
Okay. Captain Stevenson, guidance for us?
No, ma'am, I don't have anything at this time.
All right. Sharif, Thomas?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
All right. Tamara Haney, Harford?
Nope, nothing at this time, but thank you.
So the idea that you think you're close to retirement when you look like you're 21 is astonishing, I have to say.
I'm actually a grandma, believe it or not.
Not. I'm going to say not. I don't believe that. Delegate Riley and Delegate Woods.
I have nothing else.
Okay. Delegate Riley?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Molly, what did we leave out here?
I think we're good.
Okay. Matthew?
All good here.
Okay. Matthew flagged for me in a private message that that the national report, that the MACO report also talked about the disruption to the 911 centers with the cyber attacks and stuff. And we finally got that bill passed this year, which was exciting. Kevin Canale, you pop back in. What anything you want to say as we're starting to think about next steps and moving forward?
Yeah, sorry about that. My internet went out. I missed obviously the last part of the conversation. I just want to lend our support and to always be at the table. And we'd love to hear more, and we're interested in the recommendations. And obviously, anytime you want us to be at the table, we'll be there. We really appreciate the work. As part of the Next Gen 911 Commission, I got to see firsthand the people that do this work, and they're amazing. Senator Kagan has toured the state. She's visited every PSAP. I've been fortunate to be at some of those, and just meeting all the people that do this work inspires me. And so I know money things often get in the way and they cause problems, unfunded mandates, but I think there is a path forward here, and we certainly want to be part of the conversation and the solution. So thank you for the work.
Thank you, Kevin. While you were out, I took Mako's name in vain several times. So
In the club, that's okay.
I love that. Bryant, Dorchester, Bryant Mitchell. Anything you want to add? Anything that you want to say before we wrap up? Muted, unmuted. I can come back to you. Stacy Norton, Worcester.
Senator Kagan, thank you so very much for getting this group together and trying to do
Thank
more.
you, ma'am.
Oh, Bryant, hold on. We're going to go to Stacy. We'll come right back to you.
Thank you for all of your efforts and commitment to help our 911 specialists. They do play a critical role to us all. Thank you.
Thank you. And know that your senator is on the job. You got to know that. And I'm so glad that she looped you into this. You've been a great asset. Appreciate it. Bryant? I don't know if you're frozen or not. Are you there? There you go.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know if you hear me. The internet keeps cutting out, but
I know. We got you now.
yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. And called on the delegates, called on, did I get everybody? I want to call on David and wonderful Arnold. David, anything that isn't clear that you need clarified, added, any thoughts that you have?
No. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Arnold Laja, who is the backbone of this whole thing. How do you want to wrap us up here?
Thank you for your leadership and guidance, Chair. I'd like to turn it over to you if we're done for today, and we can adjourn.
Okay. Next week's a holiday. I hope you all will stay safe, relax, stay cool in this crazy weather, and please look for emails. And again, if anyone is watching at home and is interested and wants to engage in this work group, there are a lot of issues. We need expertise and opinions, and we have 24 counties that do things each a little bit differently. So we want to make sure that we see and respect and engage with all counties, and especially learn from our courageous 911 specialists as we try to improve their lives, the quality of their lives, and make sure that they are recruited, trained, and retained, and then get a great retirement package when it's time. Senator Crows, anything you want to add?
I think you covered it, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you all for your service. We're giving you 18 minutes of your day back, and have a great weekend and a wonderful 4th of July weekend. We are blessed to live in a democracy where we can work on important issues like public safety and collaborate together. So thank you all for being part of this.
Thank you so much for all your work. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too.